The Valoran homeworld had not changed. The same pale blue sky, the same silver towers reaching toward the clouds, the same palace at the center of the capital city, where the council sat on their thrones and decided the fate of billions. But today, everything would change. Yuna's fleet emerged from lightspeed, just outside the planet's orbit. 50 ships against 300. 10,000 soldiers against 100,000. By any logical measure, they should lose. But logic did not account for the chaos that erupted inside the Empire. The moment Yuna's fleet appeared, her supporters inside the Empire acted. Military bases went dark as loyal soldiers turned on their commanders. Communication networks crashed as hackers destroyed the Council's ability to coordinate. Riots broke out in the streets as common people rose up against their oppressors. The Imperial fleet, expecting a simple defensive battle, found itself fighting enemies on all sides. "This is Admiral Yuna of the Liberation Fleet," Yuna announced over an open channel. "We do not come to conquer. We come to free. All soldiers who lay down their weapons will be treated fairly. All who join us will be welcomed. But those who stand with the Council will fall with the Council." Some ships surrendered immediately. Others turned and joined Yuna's fleet. But many remained loyal to the Council, and the battle began. Space lit up with fire and light. Ships exploded. Fighters danced between the larger vessels. Lasers and missiles filled the void with deadly beauty. Yuna commanded her fleet from the bridge of her flagship. She had learned many things over the past 3 years, including how to fight a space battle. She moved her ships like pieces on a game board, striking where the enemy was weak and retreating where they were strong. But the battle was not going well. Despite the chaos and defections, the Imperial fleet still outnumbered them. For every enemy ship they destroyed, they lost one of their own. At this rate, they would run out of ships before the Imperials did. "We need to end this quickly," Taiho said, standing beside her. "I know," Yuna replied. "But how?" "The Council," Taiho said. "They are the heart of the Empire. If they fall, the Empire falls with them. We need to get to the palace." Yuna looked at the planet below. The palace was heavily defended. Getting there would be almost impossible. "We would need to fight through an entire army," she said. "Not if we go ourselves," Taiho replied. "A small team, fast and quiet. We slip past the defenses while the battle distracts them. We reach the Council and end this." It was a crazy plan. It was almost certainly suicide. But Yuna knew that Taiho was right. "All right," she said. "Let us go." They took a small shuttle and flew toward the planet. The defenses were focused on the battle above, giving them a narrow window to slip through. They landed in the outskirts of the capital city and made their way toward the palace on foot. The streets were chaos. People were running and screaming. Buildings were burning. Imperial soldiers clashed with rebels at every corner. It was the end of a world, and everyone knew it. Yuna and Taiho moved through the madness like ghosts. 3 years of training had made them experts at stealth and combat. They avoided patrols, silenced guards, and found hidden paths that led them ever closer to the palace. Finally, they reached the Great Gates. The same gates that Yuna had passed through thousands of times as a child. The same gates that had closed behind her on the day she was exiled. The gates were guarded by 100 elite soldiers, the best warriors in the Empire. "We cannot fight through all of them," Yuna said. But before Taiho could respond, the gates opened. A figure stepped out. She was tall and beautiful, with long silver hair and golden eyes. She wore a crown made of stars, and her golden blood glowed faintly beneath her pale blue skin. The Empress. Yuna's mother. "Hello, daughter," the Empress said. Yuna felt old anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. She was not the broken girl who had been thrown away 3 years ago. She was a leader now. A warrior. A force to be reckoned with. Mother, Yuna replied coldly. The Empress looked at her for a long moment. Her golden eyes were filled with something complex. Something that might have been regret. I knew you would come back, the Empress said. I knew you were too strong to die in the outer colonies. You are my daughter, after all. I stopped being your daughter the day you signed my exile order, Yuna replied. The Empress nodded slowly. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps I made a mistake. But I had no choice. The Council would have killed you if I had refused. So you saved my life by throwing me away? Yuna asked bitterly. Yes, the Empress said simply. I knew that exile would make you strong. I knew that suffering would forge you into something greater than you could ever become in the palace. I knew that one day you would return and claim what was always meant to be yours. Yuna did not know what to believe. Was her mother telling the truth? Or was this just another manipulation? It did not matter. I do not want your throne, Yuna said. I want change. Real change. I want a galaxy where people are judged by their actions, not their blood. I want the Council gone and the old system destroyed. The Empress smiled. It was a small, sad smile. Then destroy it, she said. She stepped aside, revealing the open path to the throne room. The Council is waiting for you. They are scared, Yuna. They see their end coming, and they do not know how to stop it. Yuna hesitated. This could be a trap. Go, the Empress said. I will not stop you. I have done many terrible things in my life, but I will not stand against my own daughter. Not again. Yuna looked at her mother one last time. Then she walked past her, toward the throne room, with Taiho at her side. The throne room was exactly as she remembered it. Cold and grand and filled with shadows. The 12 members of the Council sat on their high seats, looking down at her with fear in their golden eyes. Dohwan, the head counselor, stood up. He was older now, more frail, but his voice was still sharp. You cannot be here, he said. You were exiled. You were forbidden from returning. Exile is just a word, Yuna replied. And words have power only when people believe in them. Look around you, counselor. Your empire is falling. Your army is surrendering. Your power is crumbling. Who believes in your words now? Dohwan's face twisted with rage. Guards, kill her. The elite soldiers stepped forward. But before they could attack, Taiho moved. He was faster than anyone Yuna had ever seen. He drew his sword and cut down the first 3 soldiers before they could even raise their weapons. The others attacked, but Taiho was everywhere at once, blocking, striking, and killing with brutal efficiency. In less than a minute, every guard in the throne room was dead. The council members stared in shock. They had never seen anything like this. They had heard stories about human warriors, but they had never believed them. Humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, inferior. But Taiho stood in the middle of the throne room, surrounded by the bodies of their finest warriors, without a single scratch on him. Impossible, Dohwan whispered. No, Yuna said. This is what happens when you underestimate those you consider beneath you. You thought humans were weak because they do not have golden blood. But blood does not make a warrior. Will does. Courage does. The choice to stand up and fight even when the odds are against you. She walked toward the council, her sword in her hand. I am Yuna, she said. I have silver blood. By your laws, I am worthless. By your traditions, I am nothing. But I am here, and you are at my mercy. So tell me, counselor, what does your golden blood do for you now? Dohwan fell to his knees. The other council members followed. They begged for mercy. They offered power, wealth, anything she wanted. Yuna looked down at them with cold eyes. The council is dissolved, she announced. Your laws are void. Your traditions are dead. From this day forward, the Valoran Empire will be governed by new rules. Rules that judge people by their actions, not their blood. Rules that protect the weak instead of crushing them. Rules that give everyone a chance to be more than they were born to be. She turned to Taiho. Spread the word. The war is over. The old empire has fallen. A new age has begun. Taiho nodded and smiled. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The exiled princes had returned. The council had fallen. The impossible had happened. And at the center of it all stood Yuna and her human warrior. The rejected princess, who had gained power when a human, stood by her side. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson that day. Never underestimate humanity. And never underestimate those who fight for something more than power. Yuna looked out at the stars from the palace balcony. Taiho stood beside her as he always had. What now? He asked. Yuna smiled. Now we build something better. Together. The sun rose over the Valoran homeworld, marking the first day of a new era. An era that would never forget the human who changed everything. 2 years had passed since the night of the assassins. 2 years of running, fighting, and growing. 2 years that turned Yuna from an exiled princess into something much more dangerous. A leader. It started small. On the first planet they fled to, they met a group of refugees from a Valoran colony. The colony had been destroyed by the Empire for refusing to pay higher taxes. The survivors had nowhere to go and no one to help them. Taiho wanted to keep moving. It was safer that way. But Yuna could not leave them. They are suffering because of the Empire, she told Taiho. The same Empire that threw me away. How can I ignore them? So they stayed. They helped the refugees find food and shelter. They protected them from raiders and criminals. And when another group of refugees arrived, they helped them too. Word spread quickly. There was a woman on the outer colonies. An exiled princess with silver blood and a human warrior at her side. She helped those who had been forgotten. She fought for those who could not fight for themselves. She gave hope to those who had lost everything. People began to seek her out. First a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Refugees, rebels, outcasts, and dreamers. They came from all corners of the galaxy, drawn by the story of the princes who refused to be defeated. Yuna did not want to be a leader at first. She had spent her whole life being told she was not good enough to lead. But Taiho saw things differently. You do not become a leader by wanting power, he told her one night. You become a leader by being the person others choose to follow. Look around you, Yuna. These people did not come here because you asked them to. They came because they believe in you. Yuna looked at the camp around her. Hundreds of tents spread across a rocky valley. Thousands of people from dozens of different species, all united under one banner. Her banner. I am afraid, she admitted. What if I fail them? What if I am not strong enough? Then you will fail, Taiho said simply. But you will fail trying. And that is better than never trying at all. Yuna smiled. Taiho always knew the right thing to say. The movement grew stronger every day. Yuna organized the refugees into a proper community. She set up systems for food, medicine, and education. She trained those who wanted to fight and found jobs for those who wanted to work. She turned a group of hopeless refugees into something that looked almost like a small nation. But she never forgot her true goal. The Valoran Empire, the council that had rejected her, the mother that had abandoned her, the system that judged people by their blood instead of their actions. She was going to change all of it. We need more than refugees, Yuna told her council of advisors. Yes, she had a council now. But unlike the council that had thrown her away, this council was made up of people she trusted. People who had proven themselves through actions, not bloodlines. We need allies, she continued. Real allies with ships and weapons and resources. We need people inside the empire who are unhappy with the current system. We need spies, informants, and supporters. That is dangerous, said Myray, a former Valoran soldier who had defected to join Una. If the Empire discovers our network, they will destroy us. They will try to destroy us anyway, Una replied. At least this way, we have a chance to destroy them first. Taiho stood in the corner of the room, watching silently. He'd become Una's chief protector and most trusted advisor, but he rarely spoke in council meetings. He preferred to let Una lead on her own. What do you think, Taiho? Una asked. Taiho stepped forward. I think the princess is right. A defensive strategy will only delay the inevitable. If we want to win, we need to take the fight to them. The council agreed. Over the next year, they built a network of spies and supporters throughout the Valoran Empire. They found allies in unexpected places. Soldiers who were tired of fighting meaningless wars. Nobles who were disgusted by the council's corruption. Common people who wanted a better future for their children. And then, finally, the day came. We are ready, Myray announced at a special council meeting. Our fleet has grown to 50 ships. Our army numbers over 10,000. And our supporters inside the Empire are prepared to act. Una felt her heart racing. This was the moment she had been waiting for. The moment she had dreamed about since the day she was thrown out of the palace. What about the Council's forces? She asked. The Imperial fleet has 300 ships, Myray replied, and an army of over 100,000 soldiers. We are still outnumbered. Some of the council members looked worried. The numbers were not in their favor, but Una smiled. Numbers do not matter, she said. What matters is why we fight. The Imperial soldiers fight because they are ordered to. They fight for a corrupt council that cares nothing about them. But we fight for freedom. We fight for justice. We fight for the right to be judged by our actions, not our blood. She stood up and looked at each member of her council. The Empire is weak because it is built on lies. The council tells the people that blood determines worth. But that is false. Every person in this room proves that it is false. We have Valorans, humans, and dozens of other species. We have people with gold blood, silver blood, and every other color. And we stand together, united by something stronger than blood. What is that? Someone asked. Belief, Una answered. Belief in a better future. Belief in each other. Belief that the universe can be changed if we have the courage to fight for it. The room was silent for a moment. Then Taiho began to clap. One by one, the other council members joined in, until the whole room was filled with applause. Una raised her hand for silence. Tomorrow, we march on the Valoran homeworld, she announced. Tomorrow, we face the council that rejected me and the empire that threw us all away. It will not be easy. Many of us may not survive. But if we win, we will build something new. Something better. A galaxy where everyone has a chance, regardless of their blood. She drew her sword, the same sword that Taiho had given her years ago on a dusty mining planet. Who will stand with me? Every person in the room drew their weapon. We stand with you, princess, they said in unison. Una smiled. She was not a princess anymore. She was something more. That night, she stood alone on the bridge of her flagship, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow would be the biggest day of her life. Tomorrow would decide the fate of the entire galaxy. Taiho walked up and stood beside her. Are you scared? He asked. Yes, Una admitted. But I have learned something over the past 3 years. Fear is not weakness. Fear is what tells you that something is important. If you are not afraid, you are not fighting for anything worth fighting for. Taiho nodded. You have grown wise. I had a good teacher, Una said. Smiling at him, they stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. Whatever happens tomorrow, Yuna said softly, I want you to know that I am grateful. You saved me, Taiho. Not just my life, but my soul. I was broken when you found me. You helped me put myself back together. Taiho turned to look at her. His eyes were warm and filled with something that looked like pride. You saved yourself, Yuna, he said. I just showed you the path. You were the one who walked it. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. But these were not tears of sadness. They were tears of something else. Something beautiful. Tomorrow, we change the galaxy, she said. Tomorrow, Taiho agreed. Together, the fleet jumped to light speed, carrying the exiled princess and her army toward their destiny. The Empire would never see them coming. 6 months had passed since Yuna met Taiho. 6 months of training, fighting, and surviving together. 6 months that changed her more than the 23 years she had spent in the palace. Taiho was a hard teacher. Every morning, before the sun rose, he would wake her up for training. They would run through the desert until her legs burned. They would practice combat until her arms ached. They would study tactics and strategy until her head hurt. But Yuna never complained. She had spent her whole life being told she was weak, worthless, and unfit to lead. Now she had something to prove. Not to the council. Not to her mother. But to herself. Again, Taiho said, holding up his wooden practice sword. Yuna attacked. She swung her own wooden sword at his head, but he blocked it easily. She tried again, aiming for his side, but he stepped away and countered with a quick strike to her shoulder. Yuna fell to the ground, breathing hard. You are thinking too much, Taiho said. In a real fight, you do not have time to think. You must feel. You must react. Your body must know what to do before your mind can decide. Yuna stood up and wiped the sweat from her face. Easy for you to say. You have been fighting your whole life. And now you are fighting too, Taiho replied. You are not a princess anymore, Yuna. You are a warrior. Start acting like one. Yuna picked up her sword again. This time, she did not think. She just moved. She attacked with everything she had, letting her body guide her. Her strikes were faster, sharper, more precise. For a moment, Taiho looked surprised. Then he smiled and fought back harder. They trained for another hour before finally stopping. Yuna collapsed on the ground, every muscle in her body screaming for rest. But she was smiling. You are getting better, Taiho said, sitting down next to her. I had a good teacher, Yuna replied. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun rise over the desert. The sky turned from black to purple to orange, filling the world with warm light. It was beautiful in a harsh, wild way. Can I ask you something? Yuna said. Of course. Why are you helping me? She asked. You could be anywhere in the galaxy right now. You could be making money, living a comfortable life. But instead, you are here, on this dusty planet, training an exiled princess. Why? Taiho was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. When I was young, I was like you, he said. I had nothing. I was nobody. My family was killed in a war when I was 7 years old. I grew up on the streets, stealing food and fighting to survive. Yuna listened in silence. Taiho had never talked about his past before. One day, an old soldier found me, Taiho continued. He could have walked past me. He could have ignored me like everyone else did. But he stopped. He took me in. He trained me. He gave me a purpose. He turned to look at Yuna. That old man saved my life. Not by giving me food or money, but by believing in me when no one else did. He showed me that I was worth something. And now you want to do the same for me, Yuna said softly. Taiho nodded. I see the same fire in you that he saw in me. You were thrown away, Yuna, but you did not break. You did not give up. That takes strength. Real strength. The kind that cannot be measured by the color of your blood. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes, but she blinked them away. She had cried enough in her life. She did not want to cry anymore. "Thank you," she whispered. Taeho just nodded and looked back at the sunrise. The months continued to pass. Yuna grew stronger, faster, and smarter. She learned how to fight with swords, with guns, with her bare hands. She learned how to read people, how to spot lies, and how to find the truth. She learned how to lead and how to follow. But most importantly, she learned who she really was. She was not the silver-blooded princess that the council had rejected. She was not the weak daughter that her mother had abandoned. She was Yuna, a survivor, a fighter, a leader, and people began to notice. Word had spread across the outer colonies about the exiled princess and her human guardian. Some people thought it was just a story. Others were curious. And some saw an opportunity. It was a quiet night. When the assassins came, Yuna was sleeping in the small house she shared with Taeho. She heard the door creak open and immediately woke up. Years of training had made her senses sharp. She reached for the knife under her pillow just as a shadow moved toward her bed. "Taeho!" She screamed. The shadow attacked. Yuna rolled off the bed and slashed with her knife, cutting the attacker's arm. The attacker hissed in pain and backed away. More shadows poured into the room. Yuna counted 12 of them. They were wearing black clothes and masks, and they moved like trained killers, assassins. The council had finally found her. Yuna fought with everything she had. She ducked under a blade, stabbed one attacker in the leg, and kicked another in the chest. But there were too many. For everyone she knocked down, 2 more took their place. A blade came at her face. She blocked it, but lost her balance. An assassin kicked her in the stomach, and she fell to the ground, gasping for air. "Kill her," one of the assassins ordered. "The council wants her dead." An assassin raised his sword, ready to end Yuna's life. And then the wall exploded. Taeho crashed through the wooden wall like a storm. His eyes were wild, his sword was in his hand, and his face was twisted with fury. He moved so fast that Yuna could barely see him. The first assassin died before he could even react. Taeho's sword went through his chest and out his back. The second assassin tried to block, but Taeho was too strong. He cut through the block and took off the assassin's head. "Stay behind me!" Taeho shouted at Yuna. He did not wait for a response. He charged into the remaining assassins with no hesitation and no fear. His sword danced through the air, leaving trails of blood wherever it went. Yuna watched in amazement. She had trained with Taeho for months. She had seen him fight many times, but she had never seen him like this. He was not just fighting. He was destroying. One assassin after another fell. Some tried to run, but Taeho was faster. Some tried to fight back, but they were no match for him. In less than a minute, all 12 assassins were dead on the ground. Taeho stood in the middle of the bodies, breathing hard. His sword dripped with blood. His clothes were torn and stained. But he was alive. "Are you hurt?" he asked, turning to Yuna. Yuna shook her head. She could not speak. She was still trying to understand what she had just witnessed. "The council sent them," Taeho said, kicking one of the bodies. "They are scared of you, Yuna. That means you are becoming a threat. But how did you—" Yuna began. Taeho smiled grimly. "I told you. Humans have a long history of survival. We learn to fight hard because we have to. Because the universe has never given us anything for free." He walked over to her and helped her stand up. "This is just the beginning," he said. "The council will send more assassins. They will not stop until you are dead. We cannot stay here anymore. Where will we go?" Yuna asked. "Anywhere," Taeho replied. "Everywhere. We will move, we will fight, and we will build something new." Something strong enough to make the council regret ever throwing you away. Yuna looked at the dead assassins, at the destroyed house, at the man who had just saved her life. You stood against 12 warriors for me, she said softly. One human against 12 trained killers. Taiyo shrugged. I have fought worse odds. Yuna laughed. It was a strange sound in the middle of all the death and destruction, but it felt right. Okay, she said. Let us go. Let us build something new. They gathered what supplies they could find and left the house before dawn. They did not look back. There was nothing left to look back at Dot, but as they walked into the desert, toward an uncertain future, Yuna felt stronger than she had ever felt before. She was not alone anymore. She had Taiyo, and together, they would face whatever came next. The galaxy had rejected her, but the galaxy would learn to remember her name. The mining planet was worse than Yuna had imagined. The air was thick with dust. The sun was too bright and too hot. And the people were dangerous. Yuna had been on this planet for 3 weeks now. Her ship had broken down on the second day, leaving her stranded. Her supplies had run out after the first week. Since then, she had been surviving on scraps and stolen food. It was not easy. Yuna had never stolen anything in her life. In the palace, everything had been given to her. Food, clothes, shelter. She had never needed to fight for anything. But here, on this forgotten world, she had to fight for everything. Today was a bad day. Yuna had not eaten in 2 days. Her throat was dry, and her legs felt weak. She walked through the dusty streets of the mining town, looking for something, anything, to eat. The town was called Dustfall. It was a small settlement built around an old mining operation. Most of the mines were empty now, but people still lived here. Criminals, refugees, and outcasts. People who had nowhere else to go. Just like her. Yuna walked past a group of miners who were drinking outside a bar. They looked at her with hungry eyes. She was still wearing her Valoran clothes, which marked her as an outsider. She knew she should have changed into something else, but she had nothing else to wear. Hey, pretty thing, one of the miners called out. Where are you going? Yuna ignored him and kept walking. She had learned quickly that talking to these people only made things worse. I asked you a question, the miner said, stepping in front of her. He was big, with thick arms and a mean face. His skin was green, and he had 4 eyes that all stared at her at once. Please move, Yuna said. Her voice was calm, but her heart was beating fast. Please move, the miner repeated, mocking her. His friends laughed. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk around here like you own the place? Yuna did not answer. She tried to walk around him, but he grabbed her arm. Let go of me, she said. Or what? The miner asked. What are you going to do? Yuna did not know what to do. She was weak from hunger. She had no weapons. She was completely helpless, and then she heard a voice. She asked you to let go. The voice was calm and deep. It came from behind her. Yuna turned her head and saw a man standing a few meters away. He was human. Yuna could tell by his appearance. He had 2 eyes instead of 4, and his skin was a light brown color. He was tall and muscular, with short black hair and a face that looked like it had seen many battles. He wore simple clothes, dark pants, and a gray jacket, but he carried a sword on his back. A sword. Yuna had not seen anyone carry a sword in years. Most people used guns or energy weapons, but this man carried an old blade, like a warrior from ancient times. Mind your own business, human, the miner growled. The human did not move. He just stood there, looking at the miner with eyes that showed no fear. I said let her go, the human repeated. His voice was still calm, but there was something dangerous in it now. Something that made the air feel heavy. The miner hesitated. He looked at his friends, then back at the human. For a moment, Yuna thought he would attack, but then he let go of her arm and stepped back. "This is not worth it," the miner muttered. "She's just another piece of trash anyway." He walked back to his friends, and they all went inside the bar. Yuna stood alone in the street, breathing hard. The human walked toward her. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. He was at least a head taller than her, and his arms were thick with muscle. But his eyes were kind. "Are you okay?" he asked. Yuna nodded. "Yes, thank you." "You should not walk around alone here," the human said. "This place is dangerous." "I know," Yuna replied, "but I had nowhere else to go." The human looked at her for a long moment. His eyes moved over her face, her clothes, her hands. Yuna felt like he was reading her entire story just by looking at her. "You are Valoran," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," Yuna admitted. "But you are not like the other Valorans I have met," the human continued. "They are usually arrogant and cruel. They would never be caught in a place like this." Yuna smiled sadly. "I am not like other Valorans. That is why I am here." The human nodded slowly. He seemed to understand without needing more explanation. "What is your name?" he asked. "Yuna." "Yuna," he repeated. "I am Taiho." Taiho. It was a simple name. A human name. Yuna liked the way it sounded. "Come with me," Taiho said. "You look like you have not eaten in days." "I have food." Yuna hesitated. She had learned not to trust anyone on this planet. Everyone wanted something. Nothing was free. "Why would you help me?" she asked. Taiho shrugged. "Because you need help. Is that not reason enough?" Yuna did not know what to say. In the palace, people only helped others when they wanted something in return. Power, money, favors. Everything was a transaction. But this human seemed different. "Okay," she finally said. "I will come with you." Taiho led her through the dusty streets to a small building on the edge of town. It was a simple house with 2 rooms and a small kitchen. There was not much inside, just a bed, a table, and some chairs. But it was clean and safe. Taiho gave her water first. Yuna drank it quickly, feeling the cool liquid bring life back to her body. Then he gave her food. Simple bread and dried meat. It was the best meal Yuna had ever tasted. While she ate, Taiho sat across from her and watched. "So," he said, "why is a Valoran princess on a mining planet in the middle of nowhere?" Yuna stopped eating. "How did you know I was a princess?" "Your clothes," Taiho said. "The way you walk. The way you speak. Everything about you says royalty. But your eyes say something else. They say pain." Yuna put down her food. She looked at this strange human who had saved her life and given her food. She did not know why, but she felt like she could trust him. So she told him everything. She told him about her silver blood, about the council, about her mother's betrayal, about being exiled and thrown away like garbage. She told him about the 3 weeks she had spent on this planet, fighting to survive. When she finished, Taiho was quiet for a long time. "Your people are fools," he finally said. Yuna blinked. "What?" "They judge you by your blood," Taiho continued. "They think that the color of your blood determines your worth. That is foolish. Blood is just blood. It keeps you alive, nothing more." "But in Valoran culture," Yuna began. "Culture can be wrong," Taiho interrupted. "Just because people have believed something for 1,000 years does not make it true. Power does not come from blood. It comes from choices, from actions, from the strength to keep going when everything is trying to stop you." Yuna stared at him. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. No one had ever told her that the most important rule of her entire society was wrong. "You are a warrior," she said softly. Where did you learn to think like this? Tayo smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile. It changed his whole face, making him look younger and softer. I am from Earth, he said. Humans have a long history of being told we are not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough. We have been conquered, enslaved, and nearly destroyed more times than I can count. But we always survived. We always kept fighting. He leaned forward, his eyes meeting hers. You have that same fire in you, Yuna. I can see it. You may have been thrown away, but you are not broken. You are just waiting to rise. Yuna felt something warm spread through her chest. It was hope, a feeling she had not experienced in a very long time. Will you help me? She asked. I do not know what I am going to do, but I know I cannot do it alone. Tayo stood up and held out his hand. I am a mercenary, he said. I fight for money, but sometimes I fight for something more important. He smiled again. Let us see what you can become, princess. Yuna took his hand, and in that moment, everything changed. The throne room was cold. It was always cold, but today it felt like ice had formed inside Yuna's heart. She stood in the center of the great hall, surrounded by the 12 members of the High Council. Their golden eyes looked down at her with disgust. Their silver robes shimmered under the pale blue lights of the palace. Yuna was a princess. She had been born in this very palace 23 cycles ago. Her mother was the Empress, the ruler of the entire Valoran Empire. The Empire controlled over 200 planets across 3 star systems. Millions of beings lived under Valoran rule. And Yuna was supposed to be the next in line to lead them all. But there was a problem that had followed her since the day she was born. Show us your blood, the head counselor demanded. His name was Dowan, and he was the oldest member of the council. His face was wrinkled, and his eyes were sharp like knives. Yuna did not move. She knew what would happen. She had been through this ceremony many times before. Every cycle, on the day of her birth, she had to prove her worth. And every cycle, she failed. I said, show us, Dowan repeated. His voice echoed through the empty hall. Yuna lifted her hand. A guard stepped forward with a small blade. The blade was made of pure crystal, and it glowed with a soft white light. The guard pressed the blade against Yuna's palm and made a small cut. Blood dripped from her hand, silver blood. The council members gasped, even though they had seen this many times before. In the Valoran Empire, blood was everything. The royal family had gold blood. It was a sign of their divine right to rule. Every emperor, every empress, every prince and princess had gold blood flowing through their veins. But not Yuna. Her blood was silver. The same color as common Valorans. The same color as servants and workers and soldiers. She was a princess with the blood of a commoner. This is unacceptable, Dowan said. We have waited 23 cycles for your blood to change. We have given you every medicine, every treatment, every blessing from the old gods. And still, your blood remains silver. Yuna wanted to speak. She wanted to tell them that blood did not matter, that she could still be a good ruler, that she had studied hard, trained hard, and worked harder than anyone else in the palace. But she knew her words would mean nothing. The council has made its decision, Dowan continued. You are no longer a princess of the Valoran Empire. You are no longer a member of the royal family. From this day forward, you are nothing. The words hit Yuna like a physical blow. She had expected this day to come. She had prepared herself for it. But hearing the words out loud was different. It made everything real. Mother, Yuna said, turning to look at the Empress. The Empress sat on her throne at the far end of the hall. She was beautiful, with long silver hair and golden eyes. Her skin was pale blue, like all Valorans. She wore a crown made of stars, and her golden blood could be seen glowing faintly beneath her skin. But she did not look at Yuna. She kept her eyes fixed on the floor. "Mother, please," Yuna begged. "Say something. Do something." The Empress remained silent. Dohwan smiled. It was a cruel smile, full of satisfaction. "Your mother cannot help you." She agreed to this decision. She signed the order herself. Yuna felt her heart break. All her life, she had believed that her mother loved her, that despite her silver blood, her mother would always protect her. But she was wrong. "Take her away," Dawa ordered. "Remove her from the palace. She is to be exiled to the outer colonies. She is forbidden from ever returning to Valoran space." Guards stepped forward. They grabbed Yuna by the arms and began to drag her toward the door. Yuna did not fight. She did not scream. She simply walked, her head held high, her silver blood still dripping from her hand. As she passed her mother, Yuna stopped for a moment. The guards tried to pull her forward, but she resisted. "I will remember this," Yuna said softly. "I will remember that you chose power over your own daughter. I will remember that you let them throw me away like garbage." The Empress finally looked up. For a brief moment, Yuna thought she saw tears in her mother's golden eyes. But then the moment passed, and the Empress looked away again. The guards dragged Yuna out of the throne room, down the long hallways of the palace, and out into the cold night air. A small ship was waiting for her. It was an old transport vessel, barely fit for travel. It had no weapons, no shields, and only enough fuel to reach the nearest outer colony. "Get in," one of the guards said, pushing Yuna toward the ship. Yuna climbed aboard. The inside of the ship was dirty and smelled of rust. There was a single seat, a small bed, and a box of basic supplies. Enough food and water to last maybe 2 weeks. The door closed behind her. The engines roared to life. And then the ship lifted off the ground and shot into the sky. Yuna watched through the small window as her home grew smaller and smaller. She watched as the palace disappeared into the clouds. She watched as the planet became nothing more than a tiny dot in the endless darkness of space. She was alone now. Truly alone. For the first few days, Yuna did nothing. She sat in her small ship, staring at the stars, thinking about everything she had lost. She thought about her mother, who had abandoned her. She thought about the council, who had hated her since the day she was born. She thought about her life in the palace, where she had never truly belonged. But as the days passed, something began to change inside her. The sadness began to fade. In its place, something else grew. Something harder. Something stronger. Anger. Yuna was angry at the council for judging her by her blood. She was angry at her mother for being too weak to stand up for her. She was angry at the entire Valaran Empire for throwing her away. But most of all, she was angry at herself. For believing that she needed them. For thinking that she was worthless without her title. For letting them make her feel small. She was done feeling small. The ship's computer beeped. They had arrived at their destination. A small mining planet on the edge of known space. It was a harsh world, full of criminals and outcasts. The perfect place to dump an unwanted princess. Yuna looked at the planet through her window. It was brown and dusty, with no oceans and no grain. It looked dead, but Yuna smiled. This was not her end. This was her beginning. She did not know what the future held. She did not know how she would survive. But she knew one thing for certain. She would prove them all wrong. She would show the galaxy that she was more than her blood, more than her title, more than anything they had ever believed she could be. And one day, she would return. The ship descended toward the planet's surface, carrying the exiled princess toward her unknown fate.